Welcome to the Roundup video for the Cheap PC Challenge 2023. This year, the challenge had 10 participants who produced 13 builds overall. 3 of those builds placed on the podium, as is expected, and the coveted Exploding Wrenchie award returned this year for some especially unhinged builds. So, let's boot this episode up and have a look at this year's PC building madness. I'm starting this year's wrap-up with my own build, which I'm not placing in the running. In case you missed it, I built a triple-core AM3 system that I got running 6 different versions of Windows, from Windows XP to Windows 11. The build was framed around a funny number, and included a rainbow test bench printed off just for this build-off. If I'm being honest, the wheezy old triple-core felt pretty out of breath on basically every OS except Windows XP, and the graphics card, the GeForce GT 420, is a pinnacle of sadness, near unmatched in its forgettableness, except for its product name. Tallying the score with a total price of $66, my build scored 417.12 points, just shy of that funny number, sadly. Next up are the 2 disqualified builds. I didn't set aside a category for free machines this year, so neither of these builds technically qualified for the challenge. However, they fit the spirit of the contest by keeping old PCs out of the planet's landfills and doing something interesting with them. First up is Tom Barber, who sent me his build over Discord. He came into possession of a number of point-of-sale systems from the now-defunct toy store Toys R Us. These consist of Haswell-based Dell Optiplex small form factor machines, and his example uses a Core i3 variant. He added a GeForce 210 for DirectX 10 compatibility and ran the benchmarks, achieving a total of 95.59 points. Next up in the disqualified category is Eric's Edge, who dug an old HP laptop out of his closet and discovered that its Intel integrated graphics could run the Lost Planet benchmark. So he did, and it achieved a spectacularly awful 5 frames per second, contributing to an overall score of just 16.05 points. Next up, qualifying builds, from last to first place. At the start of December, with just a month left in the contest, I made a last-minute scoring change regarding price, which I mostly regret. It encouraged competitive builders to sandbag the challenge and bank points on their parts prices alone. That's my fault. I didn't examine my scoring methodology closely enough before making that change. That will be rectified for 2024's challenge. So with that said, in last place is Martin from RetroMac UK. Martin's build consisted of a mini ITX motherboard, a Skylake i5 6400, and a Radeon RX 550 GPU. Overall, not a bad performer, with a respectable 161 FPS in Lost Planet. Unfortunately, Martin overspent thanks to the specter of currency conversion between the US and the UK right now, and that dinged his build for 170 points off. Otherwise, it was a solid entry, which surprised him and his guests with its cromulence while he was building and testing it on his livestream. Martin's build managed a total of 106.75 points in the challenge. Next up is David Starbuck from Starbuck Tech. David picked up a beefy X79 motherboard with an included i7-3930K 6-core CPU, and paired that with a Radeon RX 570. Altogether, a potent system, and good for a top 4 finish, if it weren't for that pesky rule change I mentioned. David's build scored 319.7 points, with an additional 0 points for the price as it came in exactly at $100. He ended up editing the video he submitted for the PC on the PC, using Shotcut and the Radeon's built-in video encoder, which netted him about 100 FPS on the render. Nice! Ernie from PC Sound Legacy joined the competition again this year. Last year, Ernie built a PlayStation 2 emulator out of an AMD FX machine, and this year, he stepped it up a notch by targeting GameCube and Wii emulation. He built around a Haswell Xeon in a consumer motherboard, and added a GTX 1060 3GB, not the last of that GPU we'll see today. His build came in under $100, but just barely. Still, the 4-core 8-thread Xeon and the 1060 were good for a combined 327.23 points. That puts his build solidly in 6th place. Moving up to 5th place, we find the first of Big Bad Biologist's Big Bad builds. This build was completed in late summer, early fall, before I made the pricing rule change. BBB built a badass IBM server with dual 6-core Westmere Xeons and a GeForce 1660 Super. It stormed through the benchmarks with 193 FPS in Lost Planet for a total score of 371.85 points. In 4th place is Dave from Dave's Vintage Apple Tech, with a restored HP small form factor PC and a Radeon R5 340X. Because of the low price of the build, Dave's system scored a total of 379.48 points, though the 54 FPS in Lost Planet was certainly more than I was expecting out of the low-profile Radeon in this machine. Now, we start handing out some Wrenchie awards. First, the podium finishers. 3rd place goes to Ryan of Everything Is Broken Garage. Ryan did a really cool thing this year and used the Cheap PC Challenge to teach his classroom kiddos how to assemble a computer. He picked up parts for several machines, printed out some of my 3D printable test benches, and had the kids learn PC building hands-on. Of course, for privacy reasons I can't show you any of the pictures, but suffice to say, super cute, very cool, and I would have killed to have been taught something like that back in school. I feel like we need more teachers like Ryan these days because if you ask your average school-age kiddo what a computer is, they're likely to just hold up their iPad. Getting this kind of hands-on education is essential for demystifying tech, bringing it down to earth, and teaching kids to be builders instead of buyers. It also doesn't hurt that one of the builds they put together was kind of a budget powerhouse too. Ryan submitted this build for the challenge. It's based around a KB Lake i5 7500 and a GeForce GTX 1050 Ti. It stomped the benchmarks with 182 FPS in Lost Planet, and with a total build cost of just $48.10, its total score was a podium placing 834.25 points. Everything Is Broken Garage wins this year's Silver Wrenchie Award. Congratulations! The penultimate podium placing PC this year was the second build from John over at Big Bad Biologist's Big Bad Bench. After I announced the pricing rule change, John scrapped his impressive IBM server build and picked up a $40 AMD FX 8320 gaming PC, complete with a GeForce 1063GB already installed. This machine placed pretty reasonably in the benchmarks as well, with 156 FPS in Lost Planet. And when the extra 600 points from its price are taken into account, it scored a massive 866.91 points in total. For this quick pivot and neat balance of performance and price, John wins the Golden Wrenchie Award. Congratulations! Finally, the top spot. Justin D. Morgan runs the series Computerized Start on his YouTube channel. This year he gambled on a used Dell Optiplex motherboard with a Haswell i5 CPU still stuck inside. He further took a chance with the ever-elusive Radeon R9 390 8GB that others have tried in years past, only to be put off by either its high power consumption or its fragile nature as an X-mining card. Well, this year, his gamble paid off, and his system turned in a very respectable 184 FPS in Lost Planet, and cost just under $42 to build, netting him the top spot in the standard competition with a total system score of 887.56 points. Congratulations, Justin. You receive the Platinum Wrenchie Award for 2023. Now, one of the builders watching this video is probably wondering where the heck his builds are, because we're through the podium finishers and something should have shown up by now. Indeed, we've only looked at 10 of the 13 builds submitted for the challenge this year. James Mitchell, aka Watzak, lived the Cheap PC Challenge life this year, assembling not one, not two, but 3 builds for the competition, cornering 3 different aspects of the challenge with the fastest build, the slowest build, and the cheapest build. Yes, really. Let's start out with his slowest build, which I've nicknamed Meme It. And yes, I had to nickname his builds when I found out how many he'd put together. Now this is a real turd of a computer. It's composed of a Willamette Celeron at 1.7 GHz, and a Radeon HD 2400 XT in a PCI to PCI Express carrier card. It turned in a total score of 6.14 points, including a whopping 3 frames per second in Lost Planet. Yikes. Eric's Edge was pretty sure he'd found the slowest computer in the challenge, but nay, friend. The depths of PC poopery know no bounds. Next up is James' fastest build, which I've nicknamed Send It. It's built around a second-hand Dell Precision workstation based on the X99 platform, or more accurately, LGA 2011-3. James picked up a listed as damaged 14-core Xeon for the system, fully populated the quad-channel RAM, and added a well-loved EVGA GeForce GTX 1060 3GB for a total system price $99.86. The CPU turned out to be not so damaged after all, and with all 28 of its threads bearing down on the little GeForce, it turned in a total score of 564.15 points, 310 of which are from Lost Planet alone. 310! This build would have quite handedly taken first place if it hadn't been for me adding that stupid extra rule about bonus points for cheap parts. James was more than a little miffed about this change, understandably. He was in it to win it, and if it had to be through rules lawyering, so be it. His final build, which I'd fittingly nicknamed The Technicality, is a listed as broken HP EliteBook laptop, won on eBay for $4.25, and a $2 2GB stick of RAM for it. $6.25. To his surprise, the laptop worked, or at least it worked well enough to run the benchmarks, turning in 146.73 points in the challenge, including 69 frames per second in Lost Planet. Nice. And that's without factoring in the price. Oh, but when you factor in the price, oh boy. $1,084.23 points. Never again. For showing me what an idiot I am, as well as for sweeping all parameters of the challenge envelope this year, James Mitchell receives the Exploding Wrenchie Award for 2023. That's what we call a tour de force. Hey, if this all sounds like fun and you'd be interested in joining the PC building madness, keep your ears open for the kickoff of the 2024 challenge. Or better yet, subscribe to the channel and click the notification bell so YouTube actually delivers my videos to you. What a concept. I'm thinking I'll kick it off March 1st this year and then run it until Halloween, so look for a video in about a month and a half. Until then, be kind to yourself and others, and may the PC parts be ever in your favor. Have a great night.